think we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance Dream Bank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. I'm Jenna, and on behalf of Dream Bank, we're thrilled to have you with us for today's event. For those who have attended our virtual or in-person events in the past, welcome back. For anyone that is joining us for the first time, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Dream Bank. Here at American Family Insurance, life's better when you're under our roof because when you feel totally supported and protected, any dream is possible. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and virtual experience designed to help people pursue, achieve, and protect their dream. Today, we are on our last week of the Art of Decluttering series, and professional organizer and interior stylist Mary Frost is going to share more about maintaining your space. So this session will be recorded and shared on our YouTube channel. You can also find part 1 and 2 of the series on our YouTube channel in case you missed the sessions or would just like to revisit them. And on that note, Mary, thank you for being here. I will pass it over to you.
Okay, great. I am just dropping in the link. As Jenna said, you can catch the replay. That's a link to last week's session. They should also be in your emails as well, but I know sometimes it's easier just to directly click on the link from the chat while you're thinking of it here. So you don't have to go digging back in your email. I will go ahead and share my screen quick so you all can see my inbox, not what I want to share. All right, here we go. All right. Just give me 1 minute. So thanks again to everybody who has joined us for all 3 parts. If you're joining for the first time, welcome. If you have not had a chance to watch the replays, totally love that you're here, and it will not if you miss the content from the last couple sessions, this one will not fully depend on that. So I think you'll still get a lot out of it. I hope that you will, at least, and I hope that I share some insights or some ways of thinking that maybe you haven't heard before. So today we're going to talk all about maintaining your space as part of creating your dream home. This is what I consider the last step in the organizing process, although we should probably more call it a cycle because it is an ongoing thing. But before we do that, I just thought it would be fun to start off by sharing any wins. If you have been here from week 1, or even if you've just been working on a decluttering or organizing project, I always think it's cool to see what people are working on. And I always say any win is worth celebrating. So I listed some out here. You can just type the number in the chat that corresponds. Otherwise, if you want to share, something else specific, or oh, I decluttered my laundry room, maybe there's somebody else here who is working on the same thing. You can find a buddy. So I'll just read through these quick and you can pop them in the chat. If you have decluttered a drawer, that would be number 1, or started decluttering a room. If you have taken a trip to a donation center, so actually dropping off stuff that you decluttered and getting it out of your house or out of your space. Number 4, I always think is one of the hardest things to do. So if you just got started, no matter where or what it was, you've got to start. That is definitely a win. Number 5, if you feel better now that you know your organizing style, that one kind of goes back to what we talked about last week. So again, if you missed it, you can catch that replay. If you watched a replay of a session, just took the time to sit down and do that, that's huge. And if you made it here today, thank you so much. That's also a win because I know that we all have really full schedules, and it means a lot that you're here. And then if none of those resonated with you and your win is something else completely, you can throw in a number 8. And if you haven't been here, it's a little bit tough for me to kind of look at the chat while I have my screen up, but Jenna is going to kind of take a look and she can let me know what's going on.
Absolutely. A lot of engagement in the chat. It is a little bit of kind of all over the board here, but a few people are commenting on things that they have decluttered. Someone said, I'm getting ready to move, so getting rid of a lot of clutter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we had recycling lots of school papers. Jeanette decluttered her pantry. And
Awesome.
someone said we're consolidating floors at our office, time to clean.
Nice. Yeah. Well, especially like some of those, if you're moving or some of those milestone and like shifts and things, like for me, it's going to be welcoming a baby. So I've got lots of decluttering to do. It's like the perfect time to get you going. So congrats to everybody. I love to hear all your wins, and I really don't think any win is too small. So with that in mind, you can always keep the wins coming. You can DM me at Frost Organizing. That's my handle on Instagram. Obviously, you can always ask me questions or connect with me in this way too. But if it's just sharing something that you're proud of, you've accomplished, you checked it off your list, I will definitely be cheering for you because I know how good that feels. So you can reach me, like I said, on Instagram, on Facebook. I will try to make sure I check those because I don't check my messages there as often. Or even just my email is frostorganizing@gmail.com. So always feel free to ask any questions, share any wins. And I know that a few people have contacted me, and I just want to say thank you for your patience as I get back to everybody. Um, I was out of town and going to a celebration of life recently. So I kind of took a break from all things social media, email, and all of that. So I will get back to you. I promise. I just have to catch up a little bit here. But if you have messaged me, I do appreciate it. And I promise I will get back to you soon. All right, so getting into today's presentation a little bit more, um, you're kind of at the place now or on the journey of organizing. You've gone through so much effort to declutter and organize, even if you haven't done those two steps already, and you're planning to. But a lot of times the question is like, how do I actually stay organized? Like, how do I keep this up? You might have had an experience in the past where you've tried, it looks great for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then it just like feels like it falls apart. So I want to cover everything that I can share about maintaining your space, or at least some of the most helpful things. But I will say that knowing that staying organized requires maintenance is the first step, because I think a lot of times what we see on social media or just what people talk about is those first two steps in the process, like decluttering. It's very like tangible, visible. Like I see the stuff, I take it, I drop it off, or actually like doing the organizing and it looks nice and you have this final product. But then I think this last step does get forgotten about, and just knowing that like, oh, this is an ongoing thing. Like it's more of a cycle. I have to like keep up with this in order for it to have it work for me and keep it looking nice. So I think just knowing that you're going to have to do some maintenance is really like you're already ahead of the game, because I feel like we can get to that point where we finish a project, things are organized, and we almost like just expect it to stay that way magically. Like if that would be the case, that would be amazing. um, but it does take a little bit more effort. And remember that the goal of organizing is not just so that you have this beautiful looking closet, that you never actually go in or use anymore. Like the whole purpose of why we organize is that so we can make our lives easier, we can find what we need. And I think, that gets forgotten. Like we're meant to like use that stuff and make use of the spaces that we've organized. So with that in mind, we can just kind of then organize and plan for how we can maintain it, divide up responsibilities accordingly if we are sharing the space with other people. But just knowing that maintenance is a part of the process, I think, like I said, you're already ahead of the game. And if that's kind of discouraging to think of like, oh, I'm always going to be like working on this, um, I do want to share some good news that the maintenance piece of it becomes easier when you've found the right systems, or the right style of organizing for you. So I hope that if you've given up on things in the past, this can encourage you to try again. Maybe it's just a matter of, finding what fits and what's right for you and your family. Also, once you've gone through the process, like I said, it is effort and work to do decluttering, to do the organizing. And once you've done those steps, I feel like for a lot of people, it's like motivation because you see what a transformation it is and you know that it's gonna like save you time and help make your life easier. So just like the process of maintaining your space gets easier over time. Sometimes it just takes a bit of time to get used to something new. So I've come up with some common places that I feel like these are really the hot spots of what can get chaotic or where people can struggle with organization. And so I've listed out the places that I think where and what do I need a system for. You might have other areas in your home, but I think these are really pretty like general ones. And when I say like need a system, I just mean like a system is another way of saying like it's organized, you have a spot for it, and you have like a routine for how you use that space or what the purpose of that space is for. So I'm just going to go through these a little bit, and it's going to like what you actually do is going to depend so much on your own family and the space you have and things like that. But if you have questions at the end about any of these specifically that you want me to like get into a little more detail on, we'll have some time for questions at the end. So spaces that I think it's really helpful to set a system up that makes life a lot easier. When you think about laundry, that's also kind of like a never-ending cycle, just a part of life. And so you've got like either your laundry room or your laundry space. You've got all your soaps and different things, and maybe like drying racks, extra towels, whatever else you keep in your laundry room, like that space being organized, as well as when you think about the process of laundry, like how you're putting it away, organizing dressers or closets or things like that. And just the system for maintenance might be figuring out something like, well, how often, like how many times a week am I doing laundry? Do I have a larger family? Are we doing a load of laundry every day? Who's doing laundry? Do I have high school kids that like do their own? Do they know how this works and like what the expectations are? So those are just some of those kind of questions. Like I said, that it really depends on your situation. Same thing for dishes and groceries, I would say. This is another, like your kitchen space, having these kind of systems and routines and rhythms, like how often are you running the dishwasher? How often are you getting groceries, cleaning out your fridge? Somebody said they decluttered their pantry. Like that can be a part of the maintenance process and stuff too. So that's another one that I think most people can relate to and have. If you have kids, usually kids' toys can be something that you have to figure out, like how many toys do we have out? Are the toys in their room and in the living room? Are my kids old enough to like work through and declutter toys with me? Like maybe we have a system like every birthday and holiday, we have to go through and get rid of stuff. Like those are just some examples of things that might work for in terms of maintenance. And then what I mean by coming home and leaving home is like all those things that you do to get ready to leave your house. Like you need your keys, your phone, your wallet, what your work bag, your kids need their backpacks or whatever stuff they need for school, sports, etc. So spaces like your entryway or some sort of drop zones. When you come home, like what are the expectations for where things go and how things are organized? And same thing for when you're leaving the house. Can everybody find what they need? Is it easy? And how are those spaces being like used and also maintained? Usually those ones are more so on like a daily basis of are people putting things back where they need to be and finding what they need. Mail and paperwork. Personally, this one I'm not great at, mail. So this is one that I could use a better system for. But just like how often you're going through your, your junk mail, separating it out. Where are your important papers filed? How often do you go through and file them, etc. And then another common one I have here is errands and returns. So just if you're, if you're shopping, do you have a specific bag that you put returns in? Does it live in a certain place, like in your entryway or by your door? If you know you need to return something, are you the type of person that just needs to like put it in your car immediately? So that type of thing. There's a few different options for what works for people there too. But I would say if these are spaces that are organized and you can figure out like a system, a routine, a rhythm that works for your family, you will have a lot more success getting everybody on board and feeling like, okay, all of these home things and keeping up with my stuff is a lot more manageable. So a little bit more generally, just because those examples really do depend so much on your space and who you're living with, I came up with these 3 questions to answer to guarantee you'll have success maintaining your space. So these are some of the things that I think get overlooked. And the first one is, does everyone know how the system works? So especially if you're, the one taking charge of organizing and going through things and you live with other people, have you shared with the other people who live with you, how this works and what the expectations are? Number 2, you might have to go back and reevaluate if something's not working and ask yourself, is it a realistic system? Like, is this something that you actually can keep up with in your life? And finally, the third one, oh gosh, it's hard for me to say, but I feel like this one is probably, well, for me personally, I think this one has made the biggest difference in my life. As I've gone through my big decluttering journey and doing all of this, is the flow of stuff coming in sustainable? So is what you are bringing in your home, like, are you able to actually like keep up and manage with what is being brought in? So I'm just going to go through these 3 questions. And the first one, does everyone know how the system works? So this should include all family members using the space, especially for those communal spaces, entryway, living space, kitchen, laundry room, if you've got, other people doing laundry besides just you, things like that. And really a huge part of it is that the expectations for the new system need to be clearly communicated and taught. So especially if you're, like I said, the one kind of taking charge, leading the way, and you've done the organizing, it probably makes a lot of sense to your brain. And let's just say like you've reorganized your kitchen, like you've got it how you want, it feels so much better, you've decluttered, you've gone through all those steps. But obviously the kitchen is a big space where a lot of people are. So really making sure to take the time to know, like, okay, if you've moved things around and you've switched stuff out of your drawers or cupboards and things aren't where it used to be, or like things actually have a place now, communicating to everybody and like actually taking the time to go through the kitchen and show everybody, laying out expectations of like, if you take something out or if you use it, like it needs to go back here. And especially if you are trying to teach this to kids, it needs to be super explicit. I think labels help a lot in this area for the communal spaces. Also, I've seen some people who just like take a picture of the cupboard like as they expect it to be. So like once it's organized and everything's set in place, if you take a photo of it and then like place the photo inside the cupboard, especially if you have like older elementary kids or teens who are like doing the dishwasher and putting dishes away, then they can just refer to that picture and like know where everything goes back. So that's just one idea, but the main idea for everyone is make sure that, you know, everybody's aware that like, hey, I changed this. I put a lot of work into this, you know, I expect that you do these things, and everybody like take part in keeping it up. Oh, and sorry, this should not be there. That's from last week. So just ignore the last question on the bottom there. Just kind of continuing, because I have worked with many families who have kids. Keeping these things in mind of just like what works for your kids or certain kids, if you know especially if you're trying to get them to have more responsibility in like keeping their room organized and maintaining it and things like that. Think about when you're organizing, like what's going to work for your kids, and also what's age appropriate. So what can we like expect a 6-year-old to do versus like a 14-year-old? You know, obviously there's going to be some big differences in that, and just kind of what kind of organizing style you use there. All right, so this is a second question. Moving on, is it a realistic system? And I even have a little aside before we can really like even ask ourselves this question. Before you can honestly answer this question, ask yourself if you gave the system a fair shot. So obviously, you know, if things are really changing from like, oh, it felt like nothing in this room had a place and stuff was just everywhere, and that was just what I was used to and my family was used to. You know, switching everything over and giving things a place and all of that and keeping it organized is going to be a huge transformation, a great one, but still going to take some time for people to get used to. So before you can ask like, okay, is this realistically going to work for our family? Make sure you consider like, okay, did I communicate the expectations? Did we go over everything? And like, did I give it a fair trial period? So did I give it enough time that we like were able to try this out? So kind of along those lines of time. I do just want to emphasize that adopting new systems takes time, especially if the organizing process is new to you and your family. So if it's a big switch, you know, it's going to be just something new for people to get used to. And keeping a few things in mind, like for any habit, not just with organizing or keeping things up, it takes time to form any new habit. So it's just one of those things that it might not be perfect in the beginning. That's okay, but you might have to give a few more reminders. It requires more effort in the beginning as well. So before that new habit is really solidified, and like, let's say, you know, before your kids get used to like putting their shoes in their own shoe bin and like hanging up their coat on their hook or whatever it is, you might have to give a few more reminders. And even not just for kids. I mean, this goes for adults too, for yourself, for your partner, your spouse, whatever. So it's okay if it's not perfect, like from the very beginning. You know, if after like 2 days you feel like, oh, this got out of place and that got out of place, you know, it's okay, because it just it does take some time. And I'm sure if you look back and reflect, you'll even if a couple things are out of place, it's still way better than like starting at zero and not having a place for anything and just having people like toss their jackets across chairs and kick their shoes off and leave them all over the floor, you know? So try to see your progress and don't let that perfection of like having things, you know, exact after a day or two get in the way. Another thing you can try for higher success rates is habit stacking. If you haven't heard of what this is, it's just a way of kind of solidifying and helping to form those new habits. So let's say one thing that you already do is like get the dishes in the dishwasher and like run your dishwasher at night. So that's something that you're in the habit of doing. You do it every day already. If there's another habit that you want to stack on top of that, like let's say maybe you have a basket or like a clutter catcher, like something on the counter in your kitchen that kind of just like things get tossed into, and you're like, oh, I really just want to get in the habit of going through this every day so it doesn't pile up, and this is easier for me to like keep my counters clear. Maybe you try and like lock those two together. So like, okay, every time I hit the button and run the dishwasher, like that's my sign that I go through some of the things in this basket on the counter, or whatever it is. But it's basically just like taking something that you're already doing, whether it's every day or every week, whatever, and then pairing it with something new that you want to like form into a new habit. This is why it's also really important not to overhaul everything at once. So I know a lot of you had said that you're like really want to organize and declutter multiple spaces in your home, which is amazing. But just have realistic expectations about like if you've decluttered and organized, give that space some time and everything for people to learn how to maintain and keep that up first before you start throwing something else at them and be like, now this needs to go here and everything. It doesn't mean you can't like start decluttering another room or start a process in another space. It's just, it's going to be easier, I think, for everybody in your family to get on board if you have a lot to organize, to take it one space at a time. So now that we kind of went through that, you can actually ask yourself, is it a realistic system? So I'm thinking like for people who have gone through, decluttered, organized, you've given it a fair shot, you've taught the expectations, you're working with this organized space, and it's still just like doesn't feel right, or it doesn't you know doesn't seem to be realistic for like the time that it takes to manage. So that's one thing that you can ask, like, do I actually have the time to keep up with this system? And like similar to that, does it suit the season of life I'm in right now? So maybe, you chose your pantry space and like you wanted, going back to last week with the organizing styles, you wanted like this really beautiful Pinterest perfect look to your pantry, and you did it all. And after, a month or two, it's like, oh, I don't know if I have the time to like pour each of my cereals into a different container, or each of my crackers, and like get all of these things in place. So you might just need to try a different organizing style. That's number 3. A little bit more focus on function and less on aesthetics. So if you missed it last week, it's okay. But in general, I just talked about how, organizing like really with a focus on function usually takes less time to maintain than the more aesthetic versions of organizing. So you might have really wanted this certain look and it looks beautiful. And like I said, after a while, you just kind of realize like, that's not fully how you want to spend your time, or that's not 100% a priority, and you just want it to be like organized and workable and functionable more than anything. So maybe if a system's not working for you, trying a different organizing style and switching things up that way could be a better fit. So I'm just curious because I think just from hearing from people, working with clients, it is a common occurrence that like a certain system doesn't work or a certain way of organizing. So if you've ever tried to implement something and it didn't work out, I'm just curious if you ever considered the problem isn't you, it's the system. So I came up with a few different answers of how you might feel. You can type in the number that resonates with you. And if none of the first 3 do, just put 4 or something else, or you can use the chat to answer. But if something, like if you tried and it didn't work out, did you think, no, like I didn't consider the problem wasn't me, I just thought something was wrong with me? Or, it didn't work out in the past and you just felt like, I felt too defeated and gave up on it. Or maybe you did think like, oh yeah, like I'm not the problem here, but this way of organizing didn't work. I just didn't know what else to try. So if you can relate to any of those, you can pop those in the chat. And then if I didn't kind of cover a common feeling that pops up that I see, you can use number 4 for something else, or like type in your answer and we can kind of just see where you're at. Because what I don't want you to feel is that like you are the problem, because I think a lot of the times it's just like finding it just hasn't found the right fit of what type of organizing and what type of system is realistic and works for you.
I'm seeing a lot of 2s and 3s, maybe a few 1s as well.
Okay. So yeah, kind of. Well, I hope that if you are kind of in the camp of number 2, this re-inspires you and this series gives you some hope that there is a way to make it work for you. And um, I know that it can be like discouraging and disappointing when you've like gone through all that work to declutter and organize, and then like it feels like you're just back at square one. But also that's just kind of like a learning opportunity too, that like, okay, now you know what didn't work and you can try something else. All right, this is the last question to ask. And for this one, like I said, I have a lot of personal experience with this one, so I will share a little bit about that on the next slide. But is the flow of stuff coming in sustainable? So, like, is there more that's coming in than you can keep up with, basically? Um, for this one, the first thing, you might need another round of decluttering. If you can think back to the decluttering session, there's no shame in this. It's super common. Like, it's always a feat to kind of go through things once, but maybe you just need another round or another cycle of going through things. And some signs that this could be the case, like if you're still feeling like, oh, I'm always shuffling things around, I'm always trying to like organize something and then reorganize it and move it and like make things fit, and it's just a headache, it might just be the fact that like, okay, I actually can't, fit this amount of stuff in the space that I have with it feeling like good to me. So maybe that's just your fix, that like the decluttering portion is where you need to go back to, kind of thinking about this as a cycle again of like you're trying to be in the maintenance phase, but you end up back at the first round of decluttering. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Number 2 also relates a little bit back to some things that I talked about in that session of like, when you are decluttering, that's the time when you learn some lessons about like what actually makes sense for you to buy in the future. So if you have gone through, decluttered, and gotten rid of a bunch of stuff, like you're probably not just gonna go out and rebuy those same items. So this phase, the maintenance phase, is the time to put those lessons that you learned while you're decluttering into practice. That can also take some time and, like I said, multiple rounds of decluttering, but just wanted to recognize that these are related to each other, that those things that you learn about yourself and taking a hard look at like what you have, what you're getting rid of, how much space you have, it all comes kind of full circle here. So another question, which spaces does buying in bulk make sense for? So, like personally in my space, I live in an apartment. I don't have a ton of storage. I really don't buy in bulk. It doesn't really make sense for me or work for me. Not to say that you can't if you do live in an apartment or have a smaller storage space, but usually with buying in bulk, I think of things like groceries, excuse me, if you're going to places like Costco to shop, does that make sense for the amount of space you have? Are you able to like eat through such a large quantity of a certain food, before it expires or things like that. Personal care products can also be a common one, or like household products. So like shampoo, laundry detergent, paper towel, toilet paper, like these are those common things that are bought in bulk. But if you're not careful, then it's like, obviously you're buying in bulk, so it's going to take up a lot more space. And if you're not careful, it can kind of overrun your space. So another thing is that you might buy in bulk and then have like back stock. So let's say you've got what you need like in your main living spaces, in your kitchens and your bathrooms and whatever. But then you have a back stock area of all that like extra bulk products in your basement, or maybe like some shelves in your garage. I've seen that's also common. And that can be a great system. A back stock system can definitely work for a lot of people. I've also seen people who it doesn't work for. So it's like, if you're the type of person where it's like, oh, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, like, and I just end up going to the store and buying more paper towel when the one in my kitchen cupboard runs out anyway, even though I have a ton downstairs in my basement, like, that's what I mean when it's like, does that system actually work for you? So, um, I just know from working with people who have like a lot of expired food down in their basement or something like that from buying in bulk. So just make sure that if you're buying in bulk and you have those backstock areas, that you're actually, that's just another habit of like, oh, I'm checking there before I go out and buy more. All right, and continuing on with this one, is the flow of stuff coming in sustainable? Thinking about your shopping habits. So are there like specific stores? I have on here, which stores are your kryptonite, meaning just like, are there those stores that even when you don't really need anything, you just walk into and somehow like end up with a cart full? Or maybe like online, an online shop, or even like an influencer online who's always sharing links. If you're in the habit of just like clicking the links, it's so easy, and like bringing stuff in, even if it's not necessarily stuff that you were like intentionally shopping for or looking for. So thinking about those places and kind of being more mindful when you go into them, or how often you're going to those stores. Maybe even I've just unfollowed influencers online because I've just been like, I don't want to just keep seeing all this stuff that they're promoting, and that's totally fine too. Also, like I said, I do have personal experience with this one that I want to share. So I just know that there can be like underlying causes of shopping. It can be a coping mechanism for something else. And that is personally something that I experienced a few years ago. Like, I didn't really realize it. It was very, subconscious. I wasn't realizing that I was like shopping because I was upset about something else, or something else, that had happened to me that I was working through. So I do know that this can be like a deeper issue. And I think it can be frustrating when you hear just like organizers or anybody like saying like, well, just stop shopping, or just, like, pay attention to what you're buying, or be more mindful. Like, sometimes it's not always that easy. So I just wanted to recognize it and share that, like, personally, I have been there. Like, I would a lot of times go to like Target and always end up with, just like a cute home decor thing, or whatever it was. Like, I definitely went through a phase where like anytime I went to Target, or like I said, anytime I saw like an influencer post a link, I felt like I needed to buy it. So just wanted to say that, like, I've been there, and it's not always as easy as just like unfollow them or stop going to the store. So just wanted to throw that out there if anybody else is working through something or in the same boat. I also know that like shopping can be a coping mechanism for people with ADHD. And that's not to say that everybody with ADHD, has this that they need to work through. It's not saying that if you are shopping a ton or anything that you have ADHD. I just wanted to also kind of like put it out there for people to be aware of. So hopefully, hopefully that helps. And also, I am much more like I feel very like in control of what I buy, what I need, how organized I am. Like the flow of stuff coming in for me has really slowed, and I just am at a place where like I feel like my space is pretty much at capacity. I feel organized. So if you are not in that space, I can just tell you from personal experience that it definitely is possible. And then, I mean, it kind of just sounds like common sense, but it's just going to be really hard to keep up with your space and feel like you're on top of things and organized if there is a constant flow of stuff coming in and like nothing is leaving. So I just have a little reminder, if there's a constant flow of stuff coming in, there needs to be a constant flow of stuff going out. And usually, I mean, usually people aren't decluttering like every single day. I mean, I'm definitely not decluttering every single day. Maybe you have a schedule where you're going through things every week, or you find a rhythm that works for you, but like just know that if you're constantly shopping, bringing stuff in, you know, then stuff's got to be leaving too. And if that kind of gets off balance, that can really make you feel like you're not going to be able to like keep up with your space, or you get that feeling of, okay, now I bought this, where do I even put it? I don't have space. And that can kind of have you feeling like you're back at square one. So I would say what you're bringing into your home definitely has an effect. And I know one little tip for like, again, just because I've worked with a lot of families with kids, I know sometimes it's out of your control if you have like aunts, uncles, grandparents, like constantly buying your kids like toys or clothes or stuff. And that's kind of like a whole nother probably presentation. But if you can have a discussion or get them on board with not buying things, but buying like experiences like swim lessons or children's membership, museum passes, or something like that. I also had somebody say one time that they like the grandparents would buy their kids swim lessons and also like their swimsuit for the year. So they still got to like get them something like tangible, a physical thing, but it was actually like something that they needed and something useful, and became like a nice tradition for that family for like birthdays or something like that. So yeah, just also wanted to note that I know sometimes with kids, it's not always in your control how much comes in there. All right, so I just wanted to reiterate a little bit of words of encouragement, because I think it's worth repeating that you deserve rest and to feel like your home is a place you can relax and recharge. Don't let Pinterest or anyone else tell you how your home should or shouldn't look. How it feels is all that matters, and how that feels to you and your family. So I'm a big believer in this. It really has to work for you and your family and for nobody else. All right. I want to take some time. If there's any questions, you can pop them in the chat. Anything I can help with, anything I can clarify. And Jenna can kind of take a look and pick a few of those. And we can just have a little bit of time here at the end. See what you guys think.
Yeah, we can give people a few minutes to drop their questions in the chat. One question I did see earlier, which you kind of just touched on it, but I don't know, maybe you can elaborate just
Sure.
a little a little bit more, is someone said we are struggling with parents passing items off generations past, old pictures, china, etc., that have this emotional attachment. Any suggestions on how to handle this?
Yeah. Yeah. This one can be definitely tough. I mean, I have a couple a couple ideas, and it kind of depends. But so if you're not comfortable saying like, you know, sorry, we just can't accept this, or like, thank you so much for thinking of this, thinking of us, we loved, Grandma Doris too, or whatever, whoever stuff it is, just you can always say like, thank you so much. This is such a kind gesture. I know, you have the best of intentions, but we prefer to like honor her or her memory by, having this photo album instead of a case full of china or something like that. If you still feel like that's not going to be an acceptable answer for people, or it's just like too uncomfortable of a conversation, I mean, it does take a little more time and effort for you, but you can always like have whoever it is, if it's your parents or probably your parents or grandparents, drop something off. I mean, um, you don't have to keep all of it. Maybe you keep like a couple pieces of china, or like some of the photos, if it's a bunch of photos of people you don't know even, but it's like, well, this is your family. But if it's not relevant for you, like it is also okay to like keep that stuff moving on and like passing it along. And I guess the other thing I would say is that like kind of going along with, your home has to work for you and it has to feel good for you. If that stuff feels like a burden, um, it's okay to pass it off, and like it might upset your parents or your grandparents or whoever this stuff is important to, but also ultimately it's your home and you have control over it. And if people are going to be upset with you or mad about you for it, I mean, that's also something that it's like, I know this sounds kind of harsh, but maybe they're never going to be happy with what you decide. So you also just have to, keep doing what works for you, I would say.
Absolutely. Um, and he said, if you got it, use the good china. PBJs taste better on them, which made me chuckle a little bit.
Yeah, hey, that's a perfectly, maybe you like, yeah. Nobody also said that china has to sit in a cupboard and not be touched.
Right?
So
Very
great
true.
suggestion.
Tammy asked best suggestions for combining households.
Oh, um, wow. I would say definitely like when you're still separate, like when you still have the two locations, decluttering as much as you can, and then communicating about like doubles. I mean, we were just talking about it, but it's like, well, I have this set of dishes, I have this one, can you decide whose you like better and make sure you just pass one off? So I feel like with that, communication is huge. And probably compromise too. Maybe like you both have a sofa that you love, or something, I don't know. But you don't have the space, you don't have like two living spaces or whatever. And so you decide like, well, I get to keep this sofa, we're going to use this one, and we both also wanted to keep, I don't know, a desk, like an area for an office to work. And then the other person gets to keep that, or whatever it is. So I think communication and like compromise has got to be huge with that. But definitely before I probably would try as much as you can to go through the stuff while it's still separate, because if you try to bring everything from both places all together, even if it is like a larger space than what you had, I think that is going to feel super like overwhelming, and like you just have double the amount of stuff that you need. So as much as you can, kind of like making some of those decisions and going through it separately first, I think would be huge.
Great. Um, So someone said, how do I deal with having a low visual clutter tolerance, but very few areas of storage? Sharing apartment space, storage solutions where I'm not seeing everything out, which I think you talked a little bit in the last session, but maybe you can just kind of share you know, for this person and for others who maybe didn't see last session yet.
Yeah. And so like having low visual clutter means like you don't like to see things out just generally for anybody who missed it. So you prefer to have things like stored behind a cupboard or cabinet, closet, in a drawer, somewhere where you can't like see everything. Um, and I think this is a tough spot to be in because that's where you have that conflict of like, ooh, I don't have a ton of, storage space, but also I don't want all this stuff out, like hanging over my door or hanging on the wall or things like that. And I think for each kind of space and item that you're talking about, you've got to kind of pick like which you value more in that at that time and for that specific space because it is a complete clash. I mean, I feel for you on this one. Um, so maybe there's some areas where you can try to have some things out. If you live with it for a little while and it literally, like you're feeling stressed out, like it's just bothering you and you're like, I actually like can't live like this. I mean, then you're going to have to do, I would say, probably some like ruthless decluttering. So you can try a certain amount to like have out and declutter, but then just kind of like continuing to go through those rounds, like deciding, okay, is this like super affecting my mental health that I just need to be more ruthless with my decluttering? Or like, oh, a few things on the kitchen sink. Okay, like it's not driving me crazy if the other spaces are looking okay. So I hope that helps. I know it's super personal and probably takes a little bit of trial and error. And like I said, it's just like a complete a complete clash. So um hopefully hopefully you can find that balance that works for you.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to make the hard choices.
It makes decluttering definitely harder.
hmm
We'll say.
hmm Okay, I don't see any more questions in the chat. So, Mary, do you have anything else you want to share before I wrap up?
I will just share again where you can find me, follow me on Instagram. It's at Frost Organizing. Like I said, I'd love your questions, your wins, and honestly, any feedback that you have from today's session or other sessions. You can message me on Facebook or email me at frostorganizing.com or frostorganizing@gmail.com. I'll also put my website and my Instagram handle just in the chat while Jenna's wrapping up. And I just have to say thank you one more time because, a few years ago, I was on Zoom teaching seventh graders math, and I never thought that I'd be here being able to talk about something I love so much with you all. So it really does mean so much that you're showing up and you're here supporting my dream. So just wanted to make sure I say thank you again and thank you to DreamBank and Jenna. It's been a pleasure working with you as well.
Thank you so much. Well, as we wrap up the Art of Decluttering series, I want to take a moment to say a heartfelt thank you to you, Mary, for guiding us through such an inspiring, intentional 3 weeks. Seriously, your insights, gentle encouragement, and just thoughtful strategies have helped us clear not just our spaces, but also our minds and priorities.
Thank you.
And to everyone who joined us on this journey, thank you for showing up for yourselves and for others. Whether you tackled a junk drawer, a closet, or just gave yourself permission to let go of things that no longer serve you, that's worth celebrating. Remember, decluttering is not a one-time act. It's a practice of self-care, alignment, and dreaming a little more clearly. We hope you leave this series feeling lighter, more empowered, and ready to continue creating space for what truly matters. Finally, thank you all again for being here. I will share the recording of this session in a follow-up email as well as a survey for the series that you can go and fill out as well. But you can learn more about DreamBank's free upcoming programming at amfam.com/DreamBank and by connecting with us on our social channels. And if you're interested in revisiting this event or exploring past ones, our YouTube channel is the place to be. On behalf of the American Family Insurance DreamBank, we look forward to hosting you again soon. Until then, keep dreaming fearlessly.
Thanks, everybody.